Welcome to the WOVA Circle, real talk on fertility, wellness, and trying to conceive. I'm Gabie Peytchev, founder of WOVA Health and fertility educator. This podcast is your community space for navigating the path to parenthood with evidence-based insights, authentic conversations, and genuine support. I'm dedicated to being here with you through every part of your journey. Today, we have a very special guest, Aimee Raupp. She is a best-selling author, fertility expert, and a passionate advocate for women's health, with over 20 years of experience helping women around the world get pregnant naturally, improve their fertility outcomes, and feel empowered in their bodies. Aimee, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and to be with you again. Thank you.
Me too. I am looking forward to our conversation today. I wanted to first give you a chance to do a proper introduction of yourself. Let me know if I've missed anything. You have so much experience and knowledge, and it's very hard to summarize it in just a couple of sentences. You also recently revised your book. Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest update is that this book, Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. I wrote this book, the original edition in 2013, 2014. And I just had the opportunity to revise it, which has been really fun. And so it was like a 10-year revision. And it's just loaded with so much more research and information. And obviously, now I have 21 years of clinical experience, my own pregnancies in my 40s. So there's a lot more information and detail in the revised edition. And so I feel really proud of it. I feel like it's my life's work. Yeah, I think 21 years of clinical experience, I think you just learn so much. And then that's what I would say is like, I'm a huge advocate for women and for getting the right testing, getting to the right root cause of what's behind their fertility challenges rather than these, blanket diagnoses without any actual inspection. And so that's my mission, is to just educate and empower and get you to ask the right questions and get the right testing done and get the right support so that you can figure this out. And unfortunately, it still is falling on our patients to figure it out, right? With the help of people like us.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing this. What inspired you to even get into that type of work?
I think just patient care, back in the day, it's not what my day looks like anymore. Like now I do virtual consults basically with women all over the world, kind of all day long. But back in the day, when I was first in clinical practice as an acupuncturist and herbalist, I was seeing upwards of 60 to 70 patients a week in between my clinics. And just I don't know, by nature of what was coming my way, I was seeing lots of hormonal issues, lots of fertility challenges, and just lots of women who were being stripped of their power and being told there was something wrong and there was nothing they could do about it, and this biological clock and falling off the fertile cliff. And it doesn't line up with anything I've been taught, and I have degrees in biology and chemistry and, I have Western and Eastern side. And, yeah, I think the reason behind the work I do is that I, I really always feel called out strongly to question this dogma and this old school system, where it's just disempowering and shaming, and it doesn't line up with what we know in the data and the research, what we see clinically. Women have a lot more control than they're told. And so, yeah, I hit a point in my career where I was like, I want to like scream it from the rooftops. That's what I actually said that to a friend. Like one night I was like, I just want to like scream to everyone, like, you can do this. You can figure it out. Like, yes, you can get pregnant. And she actually said, that's your next book, because I had already written one book. And I was like, oh, I think you're right. This fertility is where I have to go next. And then that was in probably the early 2010s, and that changed everything.
How would you redesign fertility care if it was within the power of one person? How would you redesign the
It's a
system?
great question. Diagnostics, I would lead with diagnostics. They would have a full, thorough panel workup, vitamin D, a full thyroid panel, iron panel, insulin resistant markers. I think every woman should get a hysteroscopy before she even starts trying to conceive. I mean, just the things I see from that medical side. So that would be like the Western medical side before we started IVF, obviously, but even prior to that, preconception care. What is our focus? Like, how are you nourishing you? Are you hitting your marks, like from a dietary, a lifestyle perspective? Yeah, I would change it so much I always use the example of like, if you were planning a wedding, you start saving for it like a year in advance, or you're planning to buy a house, you start saving for it couple years in advance, probably. Same thing. Like, what are we doing to prepare? Getting off the pills sooner, educating women on their hormones, how they work, how the endocrine disrupting chemicals are impacting them, sperm health, how that's being impacted. That it's not just about the egg, it's sperm, it's uterus, it's overall internal environment in the woman's body and in the man's body, which impacts sperm. So yeah, I think I would reframe it of like, there's education, there's these are like the baseline things you need to be doing when you first start trying to conceive, then before you go to IVF, these are the next baseline things so that we can rule anything else out. I just had a case. This is an example of the system and how screwed up it is. She's coming to me because she's going through IVF for secondary infertility. I also just hate that word. I would change the word. But to fertility challenges, hormonal imbalances, things that like we can shift back, not like it's on or it's off. Like that's just, it's such this whole fertile cliff. Like, no, oh my God, there's so much research. Like, no, you don't fall off a cliff at 35. Like there's so many things I would change, but this is a great example. So she's coming to me, secondary fertility challenges, prepping for another IVF and then a transfer. Simultaneously, she's dealing with this really intense hip issue that she is getting physical therapy for. She was previously an athlete. The physical therapist is like, I want you to see, a osteo, what is that? Orthopedic. And he does an x-ray on the hip, and there's severe like osteoarthritis, which she's like 33. It doesn't really line up with her age. So now mind you, she's already been dealing with secondary infertility for over a year. She's already done multiple IVFs. She has one child. She was easily got pregnant with this first child at like 33. Now she's 37, not happening, right? Okay. Kind of a classic case. The hip doctor runs celiac testing on her because he's never seen this amount of bone loss in a woman her age. And he's like, this has to be autoimmune, or this has to be, it's probably celiac because it's like a malnourishment. She has celiac disease. Now since changing her diet, just because she has celiac for her hip pain, all of a sudden, like literally her next IVF, her outcomes doubled, meaning she got twice as many eggs retrieved, twice as many fertilized, twice as many euploids, all just from an osteo or a bone doctor finding out that she has celiac, not her fertility clinic. Like, so stuff like that. Like, to me, I'm like, this is asinine. Why is the bone doctor up on what celiac does to bone health, but the IVF doctor is not up on what celiac does to IVF outcomes? Why is that? It's a lack of education. So anyway, those are the things I would change. Like, we need deeper diagnostics on all of our patients. We need to understand what's going on and why. Because there's always a reason. There's no such thing as unexplained infertility. There's always a reason. There's always a root cause. And what is it?
Yes, unexplained infertility. That was the diagnosis my husband and I were given. So, yes, it is the most frustrating diagnosis, but aren't all diagnoses frustrating?
They're also empowering, I think, because it's like, okay, now I have something I can work with versus like, I just can't get pregnant, but she can. Do you know what I mean? That is so isolating. That just feels like, so nothing matters. You know what I mean? So it's just, oh, we're just going to blame my age. But then why is my friend from college, who's also 44, she's just had her third? Like, so if it's all age, I just wrote, I started Substack, and I'm writing a 5-part series on ovarian aging. And that's basically the argument I'm making of like, why are two women the exact same age having different fertility outcomes? It is not just this, timeline of our ovarian aging or our eggs running out. It can't just be that. Like, let's question this basic dogma that has very little data to back it up.
You also talk about the scope of IVF doctors, and it's so tricky because specialists specialize for a reason, obviously. They go incredibly deep in their field. But that also means that it's hard to expect any one expert to understand your whole body. I keep saying it's really impossible. Every specialist brings real expertise, but each one is looking through their own lens. No single lens can capture everything that's happening in a patient going through an IVF, for example. That's why I keep thinking about how to build systems that work with those realities. How do we create integrated approaches that actually support the patient going through IVF? And those who aren't undergoing fertility treatment but trying naturally. How do we change this type of care so it's more connected?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard because right now, like, the system is just not set up that way. There are some IVF clinics that, like Dr. Aimee, she has a nutritionist on staff. I think that's brilliant. Um, but many doctors are still of the mindset that diet and supplements have no impact on fertility, that this is just something that is unchangeable. So I think education, we have to educate the clinics, we have to educate, the nurses, the staff, or at minimum, everyone just stays in their own lane. I'm really good at IVF and retrieving eggs, and I have a really good lab, and this is what I'm good at. So if you need me, these are the services I'm good at. If you want to look into nutrition and lifestyle, these are the people I refer to. This is like, it either has to be one or the other, but like, or there's integrative care. I also think, though, IVF clinics are so busy that the care that they're going to get from anybody integrative on that team probably is also going to be,
Narrow focus,
truncated,
limited.
narrow, like, time limited. And also, again, you have to think about like these big clinics, I mean, this is the truth of the matter, especially in the United States, of like, there's huge funders, there's a huge funnel of income coming in. There is a setup there that, like, you have to do it this way. There's a algorithm and a protocol, and it has to be followed, and everything needs to be completely structured. There's very little room for individualization of care, and so the level of care you're going to get from a clinic like that, even if they have integrative practitioners, is still truncated. It's still really missing, this individualized care. So the way the system is set up now, I mean, I say this all the time. I love my job. I'm grateful for it. It's a shame that I even exist. Honestly, it's a shame. Not me as a person. I think I'm awesome, and I believe I so deserve to exist. But my job, like, it's like, it's idiotic that you have to now seek me out, find something on my YouTube or read one of my books, come and coach with me or my team, pay out of pocket for that in order for me to give you, like, again, love it all. I'm so grateful for it. It doesn't make sense. The model is broken. The system is broken. And so either insurance has to start covering people like us, right? We all have medical degrees, like, and obviously don't cover the people that don't have medical degrees who are out here giving fertility advice without a medical degree or clinical experience. I'm also very against that, because you're getting advice from someone who has no idea. They have no clinical training. That's also dangerous. So either start covering, and some of my girls do. They can get super bills from me for coaching even, which is fascinating, and they'll get some coverage. But yeah, you would hope that the clinics, it's really, it's education of the medical system, where we're talking about nutrition. We're talking about, like, it's clear. I mean, I just wrote the book. I looked at dozens and dozens of research papers in the last decade. The increase in ultra processed foods, the increase in endocrine disrupting chemicals, like the increase in blue light exposure. Those are all clearly linked to fertility challenges, clearly linked to sperm challenges, clearly linked to miscarriage and implantation failure. Like, it's not, we're not guessing. There's correlation, causation. So it's education. I think it's just education. And then, yeah, for women out there, though, it's still hard. They have to have, a lot of the girls call it like their bump squad. You have to have multiple practitioners on your team in order to get to the finish line. It's a lot. It's like, even I find, like, I was on a bunch of calls this morning. Every one of those calls in my follow-up email includes a script that I'm writing for them, that they can bring to their doctor to help get their questions answered or get the next test that needs to be done before they do that transfer, before they do another IVF, before they try to conceive naturally after that loss. They don't even, they don't even know what to ask. And they're also afraid to ask because the doctor then feels like they're being told how to do their job. So I literally help my girls like write a script of like, and this is, I would just want to put it in the portal. There's no harm. I always say, I'm like, there's no harm in sending that email. What's our worst? But even that to me is like, no one's sitting and being like, okay, so you just had your second miscarriage. This is, sure, we can throw out statistics at your age, the likelihood of it being genetic, fine, X, Y, and Z. That's fine. But use updated data. But here are the recommended next steps. You could continue trying on your own with this possible result. We could inspect the uterus. This is probably something smart to look at. We could look at sperm probably playing a role. You could also consider IVF, right? Like almost lay out all the options versus it's clear that all your eggs are bad and you're only getting older. So you should probably just consider donor eggs and just move on with your life. Like that's typically what's happening versus is there an autoimmune condition? Is there a sperm issue? It's just, and I don't know. I don't think that people are out to do harm, but I think everybody's a bit too busy. And I think education is fragmented. And so it's just no one's getting like a clear
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, and I genuinely believe that experts are truly trying to help. Absolutely. They're all working toward the same outcome. There are just so many pieces, and they're each looking at it from their own perspective.
And not to underestimate too, like the trauma and the overwhelm that the people, if you're in a partnership or just the woman going through on this journey. So that's another piece that I think fragments the intake of information, right? There's just so many things that are said in that appointment that can be missed or misconstrued. I was just like reviewing an IVF, like the embryology report from a previous IVF with a patient. And, on day 6, it had the words MC, which means morula compaction. So it means right before blastocyst, right? Her doctor never explained that to her. So, and then everything stopped growing at day 6. So she thought MC meant multicellular. Think just a quick Google search. I'm not sure where she got that from. And brought it up to the doctor. The doctor was like, no, nothing made it to, a blastocyst. But the doctor didn't break down to her, but you had 10 morulas at day 6, which is, I think, like freezable if we're not testing. She's 32. But anyway, it was just this big line of miscommunication, basically, that this IVF cycle happened in January. She still doesn't have like closure or understanding of what happened. It's like, so I like, no one's trying to do any harm, but everyone's too busy to sit down and explain or, I don't know, break things down and help people understand, like, well, why did it stop growing at day 7? They still just want to blame the egg. Oh, but his DNA fragmentation was like 37%. I don't know. That probably has something to do with it. She's severely insulin resistant. She had endometriosis that was left untreated. I mean, there's so many other reasons. But instead, it's like, this will be the last round of IVF we do with you at 33 years old. That's how old she is. She's already done 5. This will be her 6. And then you have to move to donor eggs. Mind you, endometriosis and insulin resistance were just discovered. So she did 5 IVFs without this information. And that information was discovered because of working with someone like me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a complex world for sure.
No one's trying to do harm, but it's like, we have to do better. We have to do better.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard because all of you experts are going through so much education. How much more education can you add to one person?
Oh, that's it. My brain's about to explode. I have to take time off from seeing clients, like honestly to learn more. But yet, a lot of the medical doctors out there, I mean, the education isn't there in medical school. That's primary problem number 1. But primary problem number 2 is that they should have education in current research around nutrition, around endocrine disrupting chemicals at minimum, around DNA fragmentation at minimum, what PGTA testing is actually doing versus what it's not, what day 3 versus day 5 blasts. Like, and now with AI, this shouldn't be that complicated. I mean, could you spend 2 hours a week studying some research. That's what I try to do. And then we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. Like we should definitely have at least more awareness around there's research behind it. This is helpful. They don't necessarily have to be expected to understand and teach nutrition, lifestyle, environmental health, but if they know how helpful it is, then they can really partner with the right people, the right experts, and provide this integrative type of care to the patient.
That's right. Or at minimum, say, you know what, it's not my wheelhouse. I don't know enough about it. I know there's been more research coming out. I would recommend X, Y, or Z. I think rather than, ovarian PRP is a good example too. I still hear doctors saying to their patients, like, it doesn't help. There's zero evidence, and you can get an infection from it. You should never do it. And it's like, what? Like that's fear mongering, actually. That's the opposite. That's the opposite of what we want to do. What you should do is, it's not my wheelhouse. Other people are having success. You could go explore this person. There literally are reproductive endocrinologists who also went to the same medical school as a lot of these people doing it. So like now you're knocking your own people. But B, look at the research. Don't fear monger. Like that's the part that, versus just say, it's not my area of expertise. We have a research coordinator. You could go talk to her, like stay up to date. All the big clinics have someone like that looking at the research. There's a meta-analysis that just came out. It's definitely showing improvements, and it's not showing risk of infection or losing an ovary. Like that's just like made up. Someone just made that up. Maybe she had one patient. I've been watching PRP for a few years now. I've not seen a single infection, anyway.
I am hopeful. I do continue to see a lot of conflicting advice. You're right. And not everything that experts are saying is always accurate or up to date with the latest research. But the reason I'm hopeful is because I continue to also see some clinics and doctors who are really trying to stay up to date with the latest research, who are interviewing people like you, like Dr. Aimee on the Egg Whisperer podcast. She interviews a lot of holistic practitioners. I see clinics partnering also and referring out to more specialists like you. I'm super hopeful.
Oh, same. It's changing, and it's changed so much. Like, again, I've been in this space for, I always say, before AMH and before PGTA testing. So, like, I've been in this space a long time. It's totally changing. I mean, I have, like you said, like Dr. Aimee's a great example, but there's probably like 10 of her. I have doctors from all over the world that will reach out, want to have a conversation with me, like are open to discussions, love, or just say, you know what, nutrition's not my wheelhouse, but I want you to read this book. I have how many doctors have my books in their clinics, which is beautiful and amazing. How many more people are open to reproductive immunology, looking at like ovarian rejuvenation techniques like PRP or stem cells, or even, the peptides. It's like there's a trend that's happening, but it's not happening at the major institutional places just yet. It might eventually.
Yeah.
But those are usually the big guys that are taking all the insurance. Those are the guys that are seeing the volume of IVF patients. And, probably half of those patients, if not more, never needed IVF to begin with. They just needed proper diagnostics. So, yeah, I hope it all changes. I do. At minimum, I want us to start changing the conversation around this biological clock and ovarian aging. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on a mission for that. Yeah.
Let's talk about your book. I read half of it, and I look forward to finishing it because it's amazing. So far, I've learned so much as well. So there's something that you mentioned here. You usually ask patients or clients, "Do I believe I'm going to get pregnant, or do I believe I'm going to be a mother?" So if you ask this question to someone who hasn't really struggled for that long, it seems like, a typical question that they, of course, would say, why not? But if you struggled for a long time, it's a heavily loaded question.
Yeah. But they, I guess most will cry, especially obviously, like, when the journey has made them question their ability to do it. Most, yeah, most break down. And then some will say, something keeps pushing me here. Like it's hard to have hope, but there's something in me that I just know, I have to keep digging, or I have to keep trying, or I have to try it a different way. I even will say, and I think I wrote that in the book in this revised edition, it's like, even if you're here, meaning reading that book or listening to this, you know, we don't need you to have like a hell yes hope, that like, yes, that's just totally going to work out for me. Um, but the fact that you're here, I think, says that you still have a belief that it could, and you're going to find the reason behind it. You're going to find the thing, I think it's not the thing ever. I think it's a combination of many things and cumulative, impacts over time of many things that really shift the needle. But it's important to tune in and, like I always say, like, remember what your why is, that you're here, because it's like you get on the hamster wheel of fertility treatments and searching and all the things, and you lose sight of it. You're just doing it to do it. You forget that at some point, I don't know, you lost the ability to be naive on how to grow a family, basically. And so to
Yeah.
tune back into this like vision of the why, and do I believe, and at what level, what's blocking my belief, how aligned are my partner and I if I'm in a partnership. So it's so easy to lose yourself, like you said, and to lose the hope and not know why you're doing all the things you're doing. But if you slow down enough and ask yourself the question, it's like, I must believe on some level because I am here. Is it like
We are
covered
made to
by
believe
everything
that,
else? Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we're made to believe that we're really fertile. Young age, we're trying to protect ourselves, and this usually comes as a huge shock.
that's right. Like a defense mechanism too, of like, I don't want to believe because I'm too scared to be let down. And I always say, but you're here and you're trying, so you'll be let down if it doesn't work anyway. Might as well give yourself a little bit of room for hope.
I
A little
agree.
bit of believing. But yeah, a lot of the, I have all sorts of cases, and I've definitely seen, the 8, 10, 12 year cases, and it's like those cases, they're kind of just like walking around like I always say, like a deer in headlights for probably the first 7 months of the pregnancy. Not real until it's like the baby's in their arms. And I always say, and that's okay. You don't have to believe until that baby's in your arms if you don't want to. It's just a
Yeah.
shock. It's like PTSD. It really is.
Aimee, you also talk about personalized approach, how people are really different and what works for one person might not work for another person. Can you give some examples of how something was super helpful for a couple or for a woman, but is not probably the best step for another couple, another woman?
I mean, I think right now too, like all the talk of like the GLP-1s, I mean, I can do Western, I can do Eastern, I can do all the things. I could also talk about like, intermittent fasting, or keto for fertility. Like, if you don't have the proper testing done, Vitex is another good one. If it could totally backfire on people with like cortisol, adrenal issues, evening primrose oil, same thing. Like, I don't touch it at all. It can make so many people estrogenic. You have to really know your case. Calcium D-glucarate, like that can backfire. DTA can backfire. Like the right person, amazing. Like I just had a call. Her testosterone's low. She wants to add in DHEA. I was like, so theoretically, yes, DHEA will help boost testosterone, but you can have high DHEA and low testosterone. That could be a different picture. It's more of like an absorption or an adrenal conversion type of issue. We take DHEA, we can worsen things. So no, you can't take it. You have to get the blood test, and then I will tell you whether or not you take it. Um, so there's lots of things. I think Chinese herbs, like randomly taking Chinese herbs from some like online site where you can take a quiz. Oh, I'm an herbalist. I will customize a formula. Like, so one 44-year-old with irregular periods does really well with one formula. One 44-year-old with irregular periods, a completely different formula. And if you didn't do the proper, even for me, from a Chinese medicine, if you didn't do the proper diagnostics, you could screw them up, And so, yeah, there's so many things, not just one thing. I think, um, so many things. And a lot of that too is like, it's not in the textbook. You know what I mean? Evening primrose oil on paper should be like the best thing for an estrogen deficient woman. You know what I mean? Like, yes, she should take that. It's not the right thing for a lot of women. You don't know that until I know that because I prescribed it early in my practice and I started to see and I paid attention. You got to pay attention to your clinical data. I paid attention time after time. I remember just one day I was like, I'm not recommending this anymore. And I don't actually know why. I just know I've seen too many of this, like migraines, irregular periods, like all of a sudden spotting, ovarian cysts. And I was like, that's it. I'm pulling this out and not recommending it anymore. We're going right to fish oil. I'm not even doing borage anymore. Like I've just pulled it all together. And then now, years later, I understand. DIM is the same exact thing, DHEA, same exact thing. And every time I post about stuff like this on social, I get like a handful of these, natural practitioners just coming at me. They are just so angry that I said it. And I was like, it can't be in everybody's protocol. That just tells me you don't know what you're doing. You're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks.
You need to write a textbook. That's our next project and start teaching
I'm going to
people.
start a mentorship program. That's my next thing. And so,
Yes.
yes, and it'll be private. You have to join it in order to get this information. That's it.
I like that. You talked about GLP-1, and because it's such a popular topic now, let's talk about it. What, do you think it's safe for someone who's trying to get pregnant? What do you think about GLP-1?
So I just wrote, so my first two Substacks that came out is on GLP-1s and fertility. Is a part 1 and a part 2. I think for the right case, it's amazing, honestly, and at the right dose. Like it's like I am not, again, a prescribing physician, but I get to watch a lot and I love research and I'm a nerd. And listen, insulin resistance, inflammation, immune signaling are all huge issues when it comes to unexplained fertility challenges, or even explained, right? If we have a PCOS girl, for instance, or an autoimmune girl, or endometriosis girl, that's what GLP-1s are addressing. These 3 things. It's not weight loss, and you got to read the research to understand that. Like this is about basically it's about mitochondrial function. And so in that token, yeah, maybe everybody could benefit from it. However, girls that are already they're not insulin resistant, so insulin, fasting glucose, A1C, not high. They're not even in healthy range. They're in low range. So low leptin, low insulin, low glucose, low A1C. You can see it like a 4.6, a 4.7. It's going to backfire. That's going to put them into more of, I guess I would say, a like fight or flight freeze state, like energy deprivation state. But for most of our girls, and again, you only know that if you're doing blood work. A lot of doctors are not doing blood work on any of the patients they're prescribing GLP-1 to, maybe A1C. And again, even still, I just had one, her A1C is a 6, and the doctor was like, I don't think you need it. And I'm like, did you look at her numbers across the board? But so I think they're smart. Again, not a doctor, but watching what's going on, I think the dosing can be too high for a lot of people. I think you can really move the needle with staying at the starting dose and even taking it not every week. Again, I'm not a doctor, so don't like go and do that on your own. Please get medical advice. But what I see the markers changing in girls who are microdosing the GLP-1s prescribed by a doctor. Some doctors are prescribing the microdosing. I think more and more doctors are seeing like the high dose. We get these, first of all, dramatic weight loss. A lot of our girls, we don't need that. We're not trying to do that. That's going to shock the body. Some girls need it, sure. But again, I don't think high BMIs are deterrent to pregnancy. A lot of times lower BMIs are the more of the concern in my opinion. But you take less and less frequently and you can see the markers shift. You see all the inflammatory markers, all the blood sugar markers, even there's some of the endometriosis markers. Things are shifting. Ovulation happens more consistently at an earlier time. They're retrieving more eggs. So it's definitely being used by more and more fertility clinics. There's endometriosis docs are recommending it, and not for weight loss again. Like, this is not what we're thinking. It's like, it's these insulin resistant girls or inflamed girls. But I talk about that in the Substack. It's this triangle. It's inflammation, insulin resistance, immune signaling. And they all basically feed off of each other and feed to each other. A lot of the work we already do, we're addressing that, right? We're always been addressing that. These things can, in certain cases, yeah, they can get us there faster. So I'm not opposed to it. It's just like, is it right for that case? Lifestyle 1000% works. It just takes longer. So in a perfect world, right? I mean, I guess too, it's like the older I get and the longer I do this and the more, heartache I see, it's like my main goal is efficiency now. You know what I mean? Where it's like, listen, or at minimum, giving everyone the options. We can do this. I can fix your insulin resistance and your thyroid and your vitamin D and all your things. It's going to take me nine-ish months. Some people are like, I'm down with it. Like, I had a girl the other day, knowing hell, I will go on a GLP-1. And I was like, great, we don't have to. It just came up in conversation. I actually didn't even recommend it. I just was looking at her blood work and I was like, you're definitely insulin resistant. And she was like, and I'll never go on a GLP-1. And I was like, and she's in the nutrition world, functional nutrition. I was like, we don't have to. We can figure this out. It might take us a little bit longer. And you are 46 and you want to have this child, so can we meet in the middle? So to me, it's like, I think we have to weigh it all out. But absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, the lifestyle recommendations that that have been around for decades that we're all recommending make a huge difference. And that's why they work. That's why things like acupuncture work for fertility. That's why, getting in touch with nature and going non-toxic and changing, eating more protein, all that. It works because we're fixing the same things: insulin resistance, inflammation, and immune signaling. But sometimes it can take longer, and sometimes the integration. So maybe a microdosing. None of my girls I have a lot of girls microdosing right now. Every single one of them is still on all of my things. They're not allowed to skip anything, and we're still working on sperm health, and we're still doing all the right testing. So I just hope we'll get there faster.
It's still hard to tell, I guess, if you're taking the medication and going alongside all of these recommendations, how long it's going to take, how much shorter.
But I think too, it's like, you can see it though too. It's like, I mean, I have some people that are so open to it, like really dialing it in. They're on continuous glucose monitors. We know what their sugars are. We're checking labs every 2 to 3 weeks. They get to take a lot less of the GLP-1 and space it out, and they get there just as quickly, if not quicker, than people who are just doing the standard. You know what I mean? So it's like, the life, and also if you want to really succeed at getting off the GLP-1 at some point, if you're doing it for the right reasons and you wanted weight loss and then you want a successful re-entry to life without a GLP-1, the lifestyle is the most imperative piece.
In your book, you talk about repairing your child's balance. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, so in Chinese medicine, the word for uterus, Zhigong, actually translates to child's palace. And so always love that. That was in my first book, Chill Out and Get Healthy. There was a chapter called Preparing the Palace, and that was all about fertility, right? And that chapter then became the first edition of Yes, You Can Get Pregnant. In Chinese medicine, palace is, it's not, we call it an extraordinary organ, right? Which, because it has extraordinary powers to, like, that makes me emotional just even saying that. It's like an extraordinary organ. And like, how does your palace look? Has anyone looked at your palace? What kind of blood flow is it getting? Is it like a fertile ground? Is it receptive? And to us in Chinese medicine too, the heart and the uterus are so interconnected, and the heart is the governor of all of our emotions. There's a channel that connects the two, the Bao Mai. And so the uterus is so much more than just the place to house the pregnancy. It is like the garden of life, and our emotions impact it. Of course, our lifestyle impacts it. And we like the palace to be warm. I always picture it like a beautiful grassy meadow, with this like tall green grass swaying, that's your lining, your trilaminar lining. And, the sun's out, it's nice and warm. And like, who wouldn't want to burrow up in there and get cozy for, 10 months. That's,
Love it.
but also that's what I always loved about Chinese medicine, or love about it, is the connection, the spiritual, emotional connection to every organ, every disease state, and really looking at that. And I think it gives women something to think about and work on, versus this is all out of my control and things are just going to get worse as I get older.
What are your top recommendations on how to prepare the child's palace, how to make it a cozy, beautiful place?
Again, I love acupuncture, so I'd say acupuncture is a great, castor oil packs, mind massage, Chinese herbs, warm tea, warm cooked foods, bone broth, blood building foods. We love nourishment for the child's palace, so lots of good quality nutrient dense protein. We love organ meats, beets and berries, all of these engendering, nourishing foods. I also always think about like the emotional connection. It's really important and I kind of see like the Bao Mai again, it's like a channel that runs between the heart and the uterus, and you want it open and filled with light, and everybody communicating. What happens is like trauma or stress. I always see it as like kind of puts these like nicks in it, or maybe starts to block it somehow. So it's about working through that, releasing, or that minimum like grieving and accepting, and so that then allows more kind of peace and joy to penetrate the child's palace. Because I do, I mean, I hate when people are like, I was told I have emotional blocks and that's why I'm not getting pregnant. It's like, I don't think that that's fair to say to people, because how could you not have an emotional block when you've been trying? Do you know what I mean? How could you not have trauma from this? So it's like, instead of blaming them, it's more like, this is a serious situation you're in. This is hard. You should have some trauma. Let's figure out how we can process it and express it, versus, take my course to discover your emotional blocks. Yeah.
In your book, you do a deep dive on nutrition. Now, what I like that you differentiate is between the modern Mediterranean style diet as we know it versus the traditional, and what is really missing. Like if you look at online, for example, and you're asked, what is the Mediterranean style diet? And you get a very general sense of eat more seafood and vegetables and fruits and whole grains and legumes. And that's about it. And I feel that this is such a narrow summary. There's way more that we need to discuss, including how we need to integrate a variety in every single macronutrient, but also bone broths, for example, organ meats, a lot of these things that we don't think are so important for our fertility, and yet they are.
You see like a salad with salmon and avocado, you know what I mean? Olives, maybe.
That's such a limited view, right? There's way more to that. There's so much more diversity and variety. And that's, I think, the key here.
It's seasonality, right? And it's like, and I also listen, from the standard American diet to the Mediterranean diet, dramatic improvement. So I'm like down for that. If that's what we're recommending, people go from ultra processed foods to more Mediterranean style. But then they're still probably, getting that at some sort of like healthier fast food place where I'm getting the salad with the salmon, and we're not thinking about, like you said, food preparation. Obviously, the oils they're cooked in, the quality of the food, the timing of the meals, because the Mediterranean lifestyle and diet is also, I mean, a lot of it has to do with like consuming nature as well, and things in season, and when we eat, and we're eating community style, and I mean, some Mediterranean cultures have very late dinners, but I was going to say, like, almost kind of picturing of like you're kind of eating with the sun, almost, it feels like, and then there's this, but just this sense of community, sense of like locality and seasonality, fresh ingredients, that part is missed when they're talking about like, well, women who follow the Mediterranean diet, like, what does that even mean? Like, you're just basically, also those studies are always like, she's just checking a box on a survey. What's your diet mostly like? Is it standard American? Is it Mediterranean? Is it vegetarian? Do you know what I mean? Who was even defining this for these people when they did the studies? But yeah, if we really break it down, and who inspired me, credit where credit is due, Real Food for Fertility. Lily Nichols she was the one who really started that conversation about Mediterranean then versus now. And even, we're colleagues. And when I was writing this book, it was like inspiration because I had, been so supportive of Real Food for Fertility when it came out. And so of course I had read it and I was like, it's such a great way she puts it. Um, but it's really like kind of, it's they're missing very key elements of that style of eating and the lifestyle that goes with it.
Mhm. It's all connected. In many cultures, they sit down and eat for hours.
Like the joy factor is huge. The joy factor is huge. And that food is nourishment, food is celebrated, food is like prized. It's like a prized possession. It's not something we just take for granted and pick up in a to-go line.
In the recommendations you provide, do you see any resistance from people who are trying to conceive? Sometimes I feel that when you save more sun exposure, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day is really going to help getting some fresh air. Some of these recommendations feel simple and they don't implement them because they're simple, even though they're effective.
They don't take it seriously. And I have to drill it in. I'm like, the nature part is serious. You know what I've been doing now is I'm like sharing research about blue light exposure. I was like, so blue light exposure at night raises FSH. That'll get any woman to get outside for her morning sunlight. Any woman on the journey, she will make morning sunlight important because now she's like, wait, there's research showing blue light exposure at night raises FSH. Yes, there is. But getting back in touch with nature, I mean, I talk about that even in the first edition of Yes, You Can Get Pregnant, because I talked about Chinese medicine. Like we say, a woman who lives in accordance with the Tao, as in the Tao Te Ching, should be able to conceive until the age of 49. She's in her fertile window until 49. What does that mean in accordance with the Tao? It means she's like following the season. She's expressing her emotions. She's getting enough sleep. She's like limiting her stressful situations. She's nourishing her body. She's slowing down. She's tuning in. The nervous system, circadian rhythm stuff that everybody talks about now, all the biohacking, that is the basis of it all. If you want to like really do what you can do to optimize mitochondrial function, that's it. It's that stuff that feeds the energy of the cells. So to me, yeah, it's the foundation. It has to be there. And I see it even in my girls. They just are waiting for me to tell them what supplements to take. I just had one of my calls. I was like, so how are you doing with the screens at night? Well, I haven't, and, I'm just like, I just really wanted to know about the supplements and the diet. And I was like, okay. So I have to have the same conversation. And I was like, this stuff matters, because she was like, what can I do for my testosterone? I was like, well, because I don't want her taking the DHEA. It's the same case. I was like, weight training. How are you doing with the nighttime? Because she was like, no, admittedly, I'm on my phone until like I go to bed, basically. And it's, and I was like, did you do any of the, oh no, I was like, that's the adrenal picture, guys. Like everybody was talking to you about cortisol or adrenals. Guess what? Get your morning sunlight. Let your body know it's nighttime when it's nighttime. Stop tricking it. You're confusing the signals.
I agree. Last question, because I know we can talk forever. I love learning from you, but we're also at time. What does nervous system regulation look like in a fertility context in practice?
Nervous system regulation. What does it look like for like a fertility client?
Yes.
I mean, similar, getting morning sunlight before morning screen time. Sleep is the most underrated medicine, I think. Getting to bed before 11, sleeping 7 to 9 hours, processing your emotions, like feeling them, expressing them. That's so big from the nervous system, in checking yourself of like, how do I feel today? How am I feeling in this moment? What is my plan to nourish myself today? What does that look like? Am I still thinking about that conversation I had 3 days ago with so-and-so? And is it still on my mind? Like tuning back in. And that's the nervous system. That to me is how we regulate ourselves. Like, where am I? And almost like, what am I carrying from yesterday or the past with me into today? Like, you have a choice there, And then sure, I love things like singing in the shower and like really enjoying cooking, listening to fun music while you're cooking and like dancing, like embodiment, I guess, is really what I would say it is. But slowing down to feel. And a question I always pose is how much of yourself are you giving away versus keeping for yourself?
I love that. Thank you. I think that's amazing. How much are you giving? Yeah. Versus keeping for yourself. Especially as women, we give away so much from ourselves.
Yeah. And we're depleted.
It's
But then yet we expect our body to just automatically do the thing that is like honestly the biggest job a human body can do is to make a human. You can't be so depleted. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Aimee.
Amy.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe. Subscribing helps you stay connected to more support like this as you move through your own journey. One of the struggles during my own fertility journey was that I felt the care I was receiving, while amazing, was very fragmented. And oftentimes I had to find the right experts and I had to piece it all together. I had to collect the advice between experts who weren't communicating to each other. At WOVA, this is very different. You actually work with a coordinated team of seasoned professionals across nutrition, lifestyle, emotional well being. They work together and they help you on your journey